The sheet element from Clutch Elements provides you a way of showing content to users in a way that the content will appear from a certain side of the canvas or the page itself. So whether you want maybe a cookies banner to appear from the bottom of the page or some type of side navigation that appears from the left to be able to navigate through different pages and links of your site, or you're wanting to create maybe a mobile drop-down experience where a list of links drops down from the top, or even creating a filter form that only shows when a user clicks the filters, and then the filters appear from the left or right side. The sheet itself is built on top of the Radix component dialog, and then it has some special styling in there to be able to transition and show from any side that you choose from. Since it is built from Radix and minimally styled with some inspiration from Shadson, what you get is a fully accessible and keyboard navigable sheet, which is great for screen readers and any type of accessibility concerns. So in this video, I'll be covering and going over how to configure a sheet. So we'll start off with inserting a sheet from the library. Then we will be going through the anatomy of what makes up a sheet and just going through several of the properties of each of the components within that anatomy. Then we're going to go into how to style a sheet. With styling a sheet, there's a couple properties that also correlate with styling. So one of those being the side property, and we'll learn how to orient the sheet in a way that you can make it appear from the top left, bottom, or right sides of your page. And then from there, we'll just go over a couple of examples of using sheet itself. So let's go ahead and get started with configuring a sheet. I'm going to go ahead and first add a sheet from the library. So open the library, find sheet, and here we have our sheet component. And I'm going to give ourselves more room and drag this down a little. So after adding a sheet to the composition, what you'll notice is you have a overall sheet component that contains a sheet open and a sheet overlay. The sheet open, and what we see here is a component that provides the underlying logic to open up the sheet. And then all we pass in is the button from Clutch Elements. And whenever the button is clicked, it fires that logic to open up the sheet. Then we have the sheet overlay. The sheet overlay is the darker see-through overlay here that spans the entire width of the page. And then within the overlay, you have the sheet content. This is the main part of the sheet that you're going to be interested in wanting to update and edit yourself. So you can make any changes that you would like to the sheet content. To edit those items in the sheet content, you have part of the sheet content is the sheet title and the sheet description. This is actually in the wrong spot because what we should have is the contact form should be outside of the sheet description. So I'm going to move this right here. And why that contact form should be outside of the sheet description is because the sheet title and sheet description components here are for the accessibility concerns and for the sheet. Whenever a screen reader comes through and needs to inform a user that the sheet or like this dialog window has opened up, it will read off the screen title and the description of what is being displayed here to those screen readers. And then anything else that needs to persist here on like what you want to show to the user just exists by itself outside of the sheet title and description. And then all this contact form is a very basic contact form that you can find from the library. If you search for contact form, it's this exact contact form here. So let's go over similar to these components itself. Let's maybe start, since we have the sheet open, maybe dive in a little bit deeper about the sheet title and description. The sheet title and description are needed for those accessibility concerns. But if there is, for any reason, that your design does not need a title or description, there's a couple things that you could do here. You could, one, use your own CSS styling to maybe visually hide the sheet title, but make sure that it's still being rendered. Or what I often do, because it's just really easy for me to reach for, is I use the built-in Tailwind, SR only Tailwind class. And I just apply the SR only Tailwind class. What this does is that the Tailwind utility does contain, thought that would take us to the SR only properties, but here I think we can get to them. It contains some styling here that does some positioning and does a clip and overflow. So that way the content is still there and readable for those screen readers. But it does not visually take up any space or room on the design itself. So we can do the same to the sheet description. And now we have a sheet that is still fully accessible and displays just the content that we're looking to display. The other thing that you typically want to do with a sheet is maybe apply some other properties. So there are, you can either set the sheet to be, default open whenever a user first gets to a page or lands somewhere, specifically for whenever you're doing cookies. If you want, when a page loads or like the home page loads, and this is the first banner that a user sees, you could configure this to default open to be true. And then the sheet would show up. Next is like setting up the modality of the sheet. So when this is set to true, which is by default, the value is true, interactions with outside elements will be disabled and only the sheet content will be visible to screen readers. So if you didn't want this and you still wanted to interact with things outside of the sheet or on the page itself, you could set this to false. And that will remove the overlay, and then users can still interact with things still on the page. A good option for this might be doing. I'm trying to think of right now, like maybe doing some type of filters, and as you're doing filters, you want to keep the filter form open, and then whenever you submit, like it either keeps the form open and you see the changes happen on the page, and a user can click directly on the filtered list, and then they can, access it that way. You see if there's any other properties to cover on sheet. So there's an on open change. Triggers when the sheet is opened or closed. So this here should be a function. I'm noticing that this is, we have an issue here that that will be fixed and updated by the time that you're watching this video. But essentially you should be able to pass some type of function or action here. So that way, whenever the sheet opens or the sheet closes, you can perform some other, functionality on your site to do something. So maybe whenever you're using sheet as a form submission, and you want, like, maybe it's a contact form, what you could do is like the user goes through, enters in all their information, and then they hit submit. And then on that submit, you could call a function to show or hide, maybe like confetti or something. So like get users really excited that, whenever they make their form submission, that now all of a sudden confetti explodes onto the screen after they hit submit, the sheet closes, and everything goes crazy. So it's a, unique way to use sheet. And then finally, we'll go into covering the sheet content itself, because here the sheet content, this is where you can set the side on which you want the sheet to render. So by default, it is set to the right-hand side. You can change that side very quickly by selecting the drop-down, and the sheet will change and appear from those sections and be stretched to those sections. So this is how you kind of quickly orient the sheet and where it appears on the page itself. And then I think there's a few more properties here that are shown. So yeah, some ways and abilities to add actions, whether you're doing on escape key down, on focus outside. These are all documented here. You could also, if you want further explanation on how to specifically use these actions, if you ever need to use them, from Radix's website, we'll have a link down in the description of the video that takes you to the Radix dialog documentation, since this is built on top of that. So we've learned how to, in this configure chapter, we've learned how to add a sheet to the composition. We've talked about the anatomy and all the different parts that make up a sheet, and how to configure the sheet. And we've also learned that there are some properties like some components like the sheet title and sheet description that are necessary, but don't necessarily need to be shown. And we can use a Tailwind utility class to hide those components, but still make them available to the screen readers. Next, let's go into styling the sheet. Styling the sheet is somewhat self-explainable in that whenever you want to style a sheet, we'll do the same thing. Add a sheet to the composition. First thing that we want to do is maybe give a little more room here. We can set the first thing, we can set the sheet to appear from the top. We could also maybe change the color of the overlay. So it's really just selecting any of the components over here that you want to style, whether it's a sheet content, we change the side, moved it to the top. If you don't want this to be full width, we could change the width itself. So we could do like 85%. And so now the sheet appears from the top and it's only 85% of the width. If you want to change the overlay, we could go down to the background color of the overlay itself. And we can give this maybe a fuchsia looking color and bring down the opacity. So now we have a sheet that has this pink overlay. And then some other things that you may want to do is if you're trying to think of what other, like the sheet content itself, change the background. Really, the styling is up to you. Once you get to this point, like once you've edited the sheet, or even edited the sheet title and whatnot, we can, like by default, the sheet title does render as an H2. If you would prefer that it does not have the H2 styling, you can apply your own class name, whether it's, let's do like an H5 or something. So we'll force an H5 class on here. And now we have some different styling because we're using the H5 class over the H2 class. So with that, you learned that the sheet itself is a way for you to add content to your sites that don't appear on screen and only appear on screen when a button has been triggered. That allows the content to come in from a side of your choosing with selecting the property of left, top, right, or bottom. Sheets are completely styleable and they're fully configurable to work in any way that you need them to. If you have any other questions about how Sheet works, or you have any questions about the Element videos in general, please leave a comment down below or ask away in our Discord. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.